ask individual questions to your subject teachers this evening as well. So as I said at the outset, it's just amazing how quickly the time goes. So the next 2.5 years, girls, are really important to make sure that you've been as successful as you possibly can. And part of that is having great attendance. You know, the average for this year group is approximately 97% attendance. So they're things to be looking for today, looking at your ranking on attendance, because that's so important, okay, to achieve. And we know that there's a real good correlation between attendance to school and doing well in your GCSEs. So you get lots of information this evening, and you also have time to reflect and bring back that information. I hope this evening goes really well, and we'll all be around to ask any relevant questions. There'll also be an opportunity to see people from the leadership team, myself and others, if you've got other questions that you want answered. So have a great evening. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Cassidy's deputy, and he's in charge of the curriculum. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Kidman. That's quite loud, actually. Okay, just a couple of points of housekeeping over the course of the presentation and when you go into parents' evening. This is being recorded, so you don't need to make notes or try and take photographs of the slides. This will be recorded and it will go on the website at the end of the evening. So you can go back at the end over the weekend and you can watch any parts again that you may not have remembered or you wanted some clarity about. There will be a lot of information that will be given to you around the principles that underpin the curriculum and how we organise Key Stage 4, that's Year 10 and Year 11, to give all of our pupils the best chance of being successful when they sit their external examinations. We're not going to have subject leaders come in front of us all and say, and for music, this is what we do and how we study, and for art, we do this, and for drama. All of the subject leaders have put together presentations that have been recorded, and again, they are on the website for you to be able to view over the weekend. They'll talk to you about what the course involves, how it's assessed, the various types of examination board that we're following, what the nature of the qualification is and where it may lead you next, so where it might take you at level 3, that's sixth form or college, and beyond that as well into apprenticeships and careers. We'll spend some time thinking about the process as well, so we'll talk about the options form, what it is that you need to select between now and next Tuesday, so there's a fairly tight turnaround on this. And what the expectations are around the returning, the method by which we use, and all those things. So I'll make a start. Okay, we will continue to follow the core curriculum here at St. John Bosco. This is the entitlement set out by the Department for Education. This is what we are asked to follow, and this is what our school follows across the course. So all pupils will study religious studies as a Catholic school. Every child, irrespective of faith, will follow religious studies right to the end of Year 11 and sit their GCSE in the subject. We will do English language, English lit, maths, science, and also PE, which is a non-examined course or a compulsory requirement of the national curriculum. So that's the core curriculum, so we'll each follow all of those subjects. The element where we get some choice comes thereafter. So as a school, we have the EBAC at the heart of our curriculum. The EBAC is the English Baccalaureate. It's a suite of qualifications. The combinations on the board behind me, it includes English and maths and science, but it can include computer science as compulsory elements. But then you have the option of a humanities, either history or geography, and also a modern foreign language. And in our school, we follow Spanish. So the government, the Department for Education, has set a target and has stated that by 2025, which is when each of the pupils sat here will certify, they'll sit their qualifications at that point, that they expect 95% of all students to be entered for and to gain the English Baccalaureate. I know from seeing some of the faces come in, I've worked with many of the families over the course of the last 6 or 7 years who've got older siblings in the school. We've done this quite successfully for some time though, so we've entered the vast majority of our students in for the baccalaureate over the course of time, and it's been very successful, particularly around language and opening as many doors as we can over the course of not just level 3 study, but into university apprenticeships and beyond. Okay, there will be questions that we need to think about, and as young people, with parents, with carers, with friends, with extended family, you'll want to consider some key questions as you're making your decisions about why it is you want to choose a particular subject. There are 3 key questions.
School is not closed. Any pupils still on site must be escorted down by the member of staff you are with to be let out of the building. Thank you.
I'm hoping I can cut that bit out when it goes to the website. But, okay, 3 key questions that we need to consider. So, think about our strengths. In which subjects do you perform better? Okay? You may want to choose subjects where you play into your strengths. You may have particular talent around dance or drama. You may think to yourself, I've always been better at history rather than geography or geography rather than history. Think about where your strengths are, and good advice would be to opt for your areas of strength. Secondly, what are we interested in? So you're going to choose a course, and you're going to study that course for a further 2 years in year 10 and year 11. You need to be interested in it. It needs to be something that's going to maintain your attention, maintain the interest over the course of a 2-year period of study. And as you get to the end of year 10, there may be external components where you're examined on those parts of the study. You get into year 11, and there will be, across all of our subjects, the need to study, to revise, to put your best foot forward, and to do as much as you can to achieve as highly as you can. So, with all of those requirements, I think the interest in the subject and your ability to be able to want to study it, as opposed to have to study it, is a big part of you doing well. Finally, do you have a particular career in mind? At this point, at the age of, in some cases 13, in most cases 14, it's quite a big ask to ask young people to definitively decide what direction you want to go down. Good advice at this point would be to keep your options open, to keep your choices as broad as possible, to allow you, when you get to the end of GCSE and you're going to college or sixth form, to have as many doors still open as possible. We believe the curriculum here at St John Bosco gives a broad range, a wide variety of subjects for you to choose from, and you'll see shortly the blocks and how they're arranged and what the options you will have to choose from look like for 23-24. Okay, so we have 4 blocks. So one of the questions I've often asked is, what can I choose? What do we get to choose from? So, as I said at the start, Block A will be Spanish, and that will be for 95% of all students. There may be the odd occasion on a case-by-case basis where a moderate learning difficulty may have been diagnosed and the child may not want to do Spanish. If that's the case, and we're working, for example, with the SENCO, it might be the case that we won't put a child into Spanish. If they want to do it, of course they can. Okay, so there's no barriers, there's no ceiling in that sense, but there might be the odd case-by-case basis where we won't. Likewise, if there is English as an additional language, and you're trying to learn English, and it's still a fairly new language to us, we may not include Spanish as well. Okay, but as I say, for 95% of all students, we will follow Spanish. Block B is then the choice of either history or geography. And typically, we see a 50-50 split. So, again, go back to what you're interested in, go back to what you may be thinking about doing for college or university. Choose what you think your strengths are and what you have the greater interest in between either history or geography. You'll then see the subject offers in Block C and Block D. So, these are a further 2 subjects that you get to choose from each of the blocks. So we've got one from Block C and one from Block D. We developed a 4th option a year or 2 ago in response to a number of students who said, I'd like to have the chance to do X and Y, but we don't have the opportunity. So we've developed the curriculum further so that you now have the opportunity to study your Spanish, your humanity, and then both an option C and an option D. Okay, so think carefully about the choice. Again, good advice would be to keep it as broad as possible, but follow your interests, follow what it is that you think you're better at. The slide before did talk about not choose the subject because friends are choosing it, not choose the subject because you may like a particular teacher. You know, friendships can change, teachers can come and go, but think about the subject itself. Is that going to take you where you want to go? To what degree are you able to think for 2 years, I'm interested in this, I'm going to study this for the next 2 years. Okay, the options form itself then, it's been emailed to all students at 4:15 this afternoon to the student email account. It's also been sent via class charge to both parents and students. When you follow the link, it will take you to a Microsoft form, and the form will have a number of fields, so basic things, name, form, and then you'll work your way through the form and select each of your options. At the bottom, if there are any particular comments or questions that you might have about the process, or is it possible to do X with Y, anything at all of that nature, if you include those in the comments, they're combed at the end of the process where all the forms come back in and then feedback's given or conversations are had about any particular questions or comments that have been made. I will just go back to this point. Allocation of places, so we will, over the course of every options process, have a greater demand in some subjects than we have the supply. So a good example of this would be food tech. So we have a finite resource in the kitchen that we have downstairs. We've got the requirement to have girls in 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11 cooking and following the curriculum. Therefore, we can only put a maximum of 2 classes of food into the curriculum for your cohort next year in year 10. What that means in practical terms is a maximum of 44 places. Year on year, there will always be a greater demand than 44 places, but we don't have the physical facility to support it. On that basis then, it will be on a first come, first served basis of who's allocated those places, okay? So get the forms back in, we can timestamp the point at which the forms come back in, and we'll have conversations for any who want to do the course but come in after the 44 places have gone around being added to a waiting list. What we do see over the course of the rest of year 9 are people change their mind. We do see the occasional person who might move on to area and go to a different school, so there is a little bit of flux over the course of year 9 where you can then move people into places if you're on a waiting list and you'd like, for example, to be in textiles or food or one of those subjects where it's oversubscribed year on year. Okay, so where do we go from here? Mr. Gibbon mentioned at the start, we are now going into the year 9 parents' evening. That will be an opportunity to speak to staff to find out where you are at this point in year 9, what progress is being made, and how we can think about the options process supporting the best possible achievement at the end of year 11, which is where we're all working towards as we sit here opting for these subjects. The link on the website will show us each of the presentations that the subject leaders have made, which give more information, particularly about the specification that we follow, how the course is assessed, the support that will be given, and the nature of the subject itself. So there are looms and PowerPoints that talk through each of the subjects that we'll have to choose from. We'll have a number of staff around who can answer any questions over the course of the evening. So if you speak to staff, or you want to speak to me or anybody else about the process, or about what might be involved in a particular course, then do take the opportunity this afternoon to have all your questions answered. You've got until Tuesday afternoon, 3 o'clock, to return all the forms. We've got an external timetable coming in on Friday morning. He's going to start the construction of the timetable on the basis of the returns that we have at this point in proceedings. So read those forms back on Tuesday to get the whole thing moving towards the back end of the week. Do spend the time, to pupils, speak with parents, speak with carers, speak with family. Make the decisions on the basis of the subject and where you're going next, okay? Can't emphasise that enough. Make those decisions on those bases. Okay, class charts then. Just to digress slightly, we're moving into more and more an electronic world where communication is often done electronically rather than verbally. We as a school use class charts as one of our primary methods of communication. It allows you as parents to be able to log in, see homework that being set, get a sense of on day by day what the conduct of your child is like, be notified of any detentions, notified of any trips, any key events in school. The main concept that we now use is class charts. Your link for the options form has also gone to class charts today. Across school this evening, there will be staff on hand on centre point to help you with logging in and downloading class charts. Over the course of the next 2 years, as parents, you really need to have that, because all the communication about the GCSE, all the support that we'll be talking about, intervention classes, revision sessions, trips, the whole thing, it will all come through class charts. So if you can download that app, please. I've got a list of parents who, if you need more support with it, can go to Centrepoint and speak to either Mr. Boyle or Mr. Johnson, and they'll be able to give you further support on downloading that app. Okay, so if you do need any more support with that, and your name is up here, please go and see Mr. Johnson or Mr. Boyle, and they will provide further support. Right, I'm going to close the presentation shortly, hand over to Mrs. Graham, who's going to talk a little bit about where we are currently in year 11. Beg your pardon, year 9.
Thank you. So it's lovely to see you all here this evening. I've spoken to quite a number of you on the phone over the years, but I've never met you face to face. And I'm Mrs. Graham, I'm the year head. I just want to say a huge well done for Tuesday. We brought over 300 young people to the cinema, and it was an absolute credit to you all. We walked there, we walked back, the cinema was spotless when we left, so a huge well done to everybody. It was a really nice afternoon. You will hear about the geography trip and retreats coming up after half term, so again it's really important that you get some help on class charts, because there'll be announcements of those trips, and again reply slips will need to be brought back. Sadly, we have got a number of issues on social media coming into school. Can you please monitor what your daughter is putting on social media? And as I always say to everyone in my prayer and liturgy on a Tuesday, if it's not nice, if it's not kind, you don't need to see it. Just have your friends on your phone. So it's not a form of harassing anybody, so can we just make sure we monitor it as a parent? Also on phones, we always ask the girls to put the phones in their lockers at the beginning of the day, and that's to safeguard all of us, parents, teachers, students, so we will insist on those being in their lockers. They don't need it. You will see them all at lunchtime and break times chatting to each other. They don't need a phone to chat to each other, so that's why we really insist on the phones being away. And thank you all for your continued support. It is a credit that you're all here tonight. It's lovely to see you all. There will be on your envelopes a little note if you need to see a member of SLT, and they will be placed up on Centrepoint. And then your daughters will bring you around the school, and that's where we're based rather than in one area. So it's all in departments. You should all have a plan. Try and stagger yourselves out so everybody's not going to maths at the same time, and I hope tonight is very successful. Okay, thank you.
Okay, have a look after